For the 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, all the attention is on the higher trims for this generation and platform, and rightfully so. With the R-Line, you get a sportier and sleeker appearance, and then later on this year, we get the R-Line Turbo, which is going to give us an engine and power output that's very similar to the Audi Q5. Now, if you're someone not looking to spend a lot of money on your next daily driver, you're looking at a price range between $25,000 and $35,000, the Tiguan S not only is going to make a lot of sense and would be the ideal choice for you, it also just might be one of the most competitive crossovers, providing a long list of features that some rivals will not be offering for their base models. In today's video, we're going to check out what the 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan S has to offer us, and why in this market, in a very oversaturated segment, going with the Volkswagen Tiguan S might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Gervais Volkswagen in Lowell, Massachusetts for letting come down here to check out the Volkswagen Tiguan once again. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Volkswagen inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan S, you're looking at a starting MSRP coming in just below $30,000. Keep in mind that is for the front-wheel drive version. If you want to go with Volkswagen's 4Motion all-wheel drive, you're spending just over $32,000. Somewhat pricey for a base trim even in 2025. However, you make up for that and then some with the interior technology and features that this crossover will provide us. Now, for the Tiguan and this generation, it's lost its boxier dimensions. You have a bit more of a sleeker appearance, and I think it kind of looks like the ID4 and possibly even the Volkswagen Taos. You have rounder front and rear fascias. You have a bit more of a sloping roofline here, giving you more of an appealing appearance to this vehicle. Now, it all starts off with the exterior though for this model, because you are going to receive full LED headlights and LED turn signal indicators, and better yet, you will have adaptive lighting as well. That's kind of rare here for a base trim in 2025. Now, you will have brushed aluminum accents for the lower portion of the front bumper, giving you more of a two-tone look here, and that way it doesn't look too cheap for a vehicle in this segment. Better yet, you are going to have functional side air curtains. That is right. Some vehicles don't provide that in this market, giving you better airflow and also helping out with the overall efficiency when you are on the highway. Also, I do love that smoother and rounder front fascia, and you see the aggressive body lines on the hood. This is a very nice looking crossover. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, you are going to receive 17-inch alloy wheels. This does come standard. Interestingly enough, though, your only optional package will be 18-inch wheels. And I'm going to say this right now. Do not go with the 18s. They don't look good on this vehicle. I don't even care about the fact that 18s might create a bit more road noise. They just don't look that good. The 17s give you just a bit more here for the on-road comfort. Also, we will talk about the interior insulation as well for this model. Now, you are going to have those brushed aluminum accents for the side profile, giving you some symmetry to the overall look of this crossover, and you will have cladding once again, letting you know you can take on some of the elements and maybe even some snow-covered roadways. Better yet, and this is a bit of a surprise for me, you are going to have body color match side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety, and on top of this, you are going to have roof rails. Again, most base models in this segment are not going to give you most of these features, so that is great to see. Then as you make your way around to the back, you guessed it, you are going to have LED taillights. So a full LED light setup here for the Volkswagen Tiguan S, giving you a streamlined and modern appearance. Also, you have the LED light bar that runs the length of the rear fascia, which has become very common in the Volkswagen and Audi product lines. So a bit more of a futuristic look, and also, I'd like the fact that Volkswagen didn't cheap out with their aesthetics for this new generation. You are going to have that sloping roof line once again, like I mentioned before, so not as boxy as last generation. And there will be some chrome accents that make their way into the final third of this vehicle. You're also going to notice for the rear fascia, there's some aggressive body lines as well. So it does look sporty, it does look contemporary, and I think that what Volkswagen's doing here is really trying to draw in a new type of buyer that is not going to be that mainstream look that we saw for last generation. This is something a bit different. For the lower portion of the rear bumper, you will have that aggressive cladding once again, obviously with this being a crossover, and you are going to have some contrasting accents which match what you have up front and for the side profile. And then lastly, and this is no surprise, no visible exhaust outlet. That will be tucked beneath the bumper for a cleaner appearance. Powering the Volkswagen Tiguan S, you are going to have a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 201 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. For those of you questioning whether you should go with an S, SE, or R-Line, keep in mind that for 2025, this engine will be found in all trims. Obviously for 2026, you do get the R-Line Turbo, which is going to be very exciting, but also quite expensive. So keep that in mind. Maybe save your pennies for the 2026 model year. But compared to last generation, this engine does experience a healthy increase in performance, so you can pass those slower drivers and enter highways with confidence. Now, like I mentioned before, you can go with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive will provide better year-round capability and versatility. Also, with the Tiguan for 2025, you have a ground clearance of 7 inches. That should be more than enough to take on some snow-covered roadways. Probably more importantly though, for the Tiguan and in this very competitive segment, when it comes to fuel economy, you're looking at right on 22 miles per gallon in the city and 30 miles per gallon on the highway, which is typical for this engine, but this is far from being the most efficient in its class. So keep that in mind, but hey, if you want a fun daily driver, you have to sacrifice somewhere with this vehicle at around $32,000. Hopping inside the Volkswagen Tiguan S, we have a long list of features that makes the S probably a better choice for a lot of you if you're not looking to spend over $35,000. And this is not just for the Tiguan, this could be for other vehicles as well, where the Tiguan S is more than competitive solely for the driving environment. Because up front you are going to receive heated front seats. That is right. Comparing this to a Subaru Forester base, you don't get heated seat functionality. That is huge, especially if you live up here in New England and deal with colder conditions throughout the year. Now, obviously, the upholstery is cloth, it's firm, it's not very plush or comfortable. I wouldn't expect anything different here for a vehicle at around $32,000. Also, they're not power adjustable. Again, no surprise. The bolstering and support is pretty good though, so when you are in the corners on a winding back road, you shouldn't be swinging around too much here in the seats. In fact, I do think that depending on your body frame, you might find yourself quite snug here being behind the wheel of the Tiguan, which is kind of typical in this market. In front of you will be a leatherette wrapped steering wheel, which this is huge in my opinion. Very small detail, small feature, but a lot of manufacturers for base trims give you a cheaper feel to the steering wheel. So right then and there, Volkswagen is most certainly impressing me with the S right now. You can have physical buttons, that is right, physical buttons, no longer haptic feedback on the steering wheel to help you control your full digital gauge cluster. So a full digital gauge cluster comes standard across all trims for 2025. Comparing this to a Subaru Forester, Nissan Rogue, some manufacturers don't give you a full digital gauge cluster. You have analog gauges. So this right here gives you a futuristic and modern appearance even on a budget. That is so great to see. Now, by using the buttons on the right side of the steering wheel, you can scroll through a variety of information and customize this screen to your liking. So I love the fact that it is intuitive, the resolution and quality is really good, and at least just looking straight out in front of me, this kind of reminds me of what we have with the Volkswagen GTI. So again, ergonomically, I like what the Tiguan is providing us here for this generation. Now, taking a look at the infotainment system, for me it gets even better here for this model, because you are going to have a 13-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with a wireless phone charging pad. But aside from those features, I'm more excited about the fact we have dual zone climate control. To put this into perspective, this crossover comes in at around $30,000 if you go with the front wheel drive version. At $30,000, you are not going to come across many vehicles that give you heated seats and dual zone climate control. You might get one feature over the other, but not both. And typically for a base trim, you're going to get neither. With Volkswagen, they're providing a lot of value on the low end, and this right here is what really impresses me about this model. Sure, this is not going to be a perfect crossover, and we'll discuss that later on in this video, but tech-wise and even the creature comforts and amenities, this is where the Tiguan, I think, is very competitive and might be the best for a base trim for 2025. Now, unfortunately, though, with this head unit, it is quite complex and difficult to get used to. That is the one drawback here, because when you take a look at the competitors, the new Honda CR-V gives you a 9-inch touchscreen, which is very trimmed down, very straightforward. But for Volkswagen, this is similar to what we have seen from crossovers with Google-based software. Also, you're not going to have physical buttons on the dashboard to control your climate control, to control your AC, front rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction, and 3-level heated seats. That will all be at the bottom of the screen. Very typical in this market now. You're also going to have IDA from Volkswagen, which is an onboard assistant. Again, kind of rare to find here in this market. At the top of the screen will be quick access icons that will get you to different menus efficiently, such as your navigation system, your Bluetooth, and then radio. Also, you will have your vehicle icon here, and that way you can access your traction control system, your auto start stop. Also, you can add on more widgets as well, leading to your keyless access, your hill descent control, your trip computer, wipers in service position, and then, of course, you can go with your driving modes and your assist systems. All this can be customized here and added on to this display. I love to see that. Then next, your vehicle icon will be your menu layout here. For your telephone, radio, media, navigation, vehicle, etc. All your widgets will be in place and within arm's reach. We have taken a bit more of a deeper dive with the Tiguan SE, so I'm not going to reiterate myself here for the S trim today. Now, in placing the Tiguan in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory, also front and rear parking sensors. Again, that's usually a feature reserved for higher trims in this market, and you're also going to have a 180-degree view as well, giving you better visibility. Now, continuing on beneath the head unit, you are going to find this microfiber or cloth-like material on the dashboard and door panels, which I've seen too many times from manufacturers to make it feel like this is a unique experience to the Tiguan. However, it does kind of trim down on the hard touch plastics that would typically be found in a vehicle at this price point. So maybe it's a half-hearted effort. I kind of like it, but I know a lot of you probably won't, because this will be difficult to keep clean throughout the years of ownership. Now, for the center console itself, you will find 2 cup holders and also a smaller cubby for maybe some loose change. Also, your start-stop button, and then you have your knob for your volume here, so at least a physical dial. Then next, that will be your electronic parking brake. Now, if you are looking for your gear selector, that will be found on the steering wheel stock. And I complained about that last time with the SE. A lot of you disagreed, so I'm not going to criticize that for today's review. Now, you are going to have a center storage compartment, which is home to your 2 USB-C inputs up front, your wireless phone charging pad, and then also it is deep enough for some smaller items, maybe a couple wallets, smartphones, and then of course some smaller tech gadgets. And there will be another compartment which is perfectly sized for a wallet. And then lastly, to round out the front seating area, above we do not get a power moonroof that will be available on the SE. Now, for passengers in the second row, much like we experienced with the SE, one of the major changes for this generation and for this platform is the fact that Volkswagen is prioritizing second row seating capacity, where it's not going to be as cramped or as claustrophobic. You're looking at right on 39 inches of legroom. That's on par with the Toyota RAV4, Nissan Rogue, better than the Mazda CX-5, on par with the Ford Escape. Falls just a bit short compared to a CR-V, but the CR-V is one of the better vehicles in this market for overall practicality. But for the Tiguan, though, it has just a bit more to work with than last generation. I think tall passengers can sit back here relatively comfortably because you have a lot of legroom, also plenty of headroom, and a good amount of shoulder room too. Now, you are going to have an aggressive center hump, though, that will take away from legroom if you are trying to squeeze in a third person in the center, but it might be able to work on some shorter drives, so keep that in mind. But for me, though, I'm really genuinely impressed with what Volkswagen has given us for the second row for a base trim. You are going to have 2 center-mounted air vents. That's not always common, even in this market at around $30,000. 2 USB-C inputs. And what I really love here is that you are going to have a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Returning to the rear fascia for the Volkswagen Tiguan S, there is one drawback here by going with the S over the SE, and that's the fact you do not receive a power liftgate. I know, kind of sad, but a lot of base trims don't give you a power liftgate, so I don't think that's too much of a concern here. But behind the second row seat, you're looking at right on 26.5 cubic feet of room, which is a significant downgrade compared to last generation. Also, you no longer get an optional third row here. And by doing so, though, you have more interior space for the second row. So it's a give or take with the 2025 Tiguan. But with that being said, even though the Tiguan is no longer one of the most practical crossovers in this market, there's more than enough space if you are going on frequent road trips with the family. You can easily store 9, 10, 11 bags of luggage back here. Also have a decently high roof line. So I don't think practicality should be too much of a concern. You're also going to have deep side pockets on both sides of the cargo area for some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. And then more importantly is going to be the fact you are going to have a spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at just under 60 cubic feet of room. Once again, falling behind some competitors in this class, but again, I don't think that's too much of a concern here. What the Tiguan is offering for features, tech, styling, and then also, of course, the interior space, I think is more than enough to push this crossover over the finish line. But if you are looking at buying a larger compact crossover and a larger two-row SUV, I would say just go with the Atlas Cross Sport over this model. But the Tiguan for 2025 and the third generation is providing a lot to work with here, especially for the S. If this is your first time taking a look at the all-new Volkswagen Tiguan for 2025, and more specifically for the S trim, here's your quick breakdown. With a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and 8-speed automatic transmission, and also the fact that for this generation it has been downsized quite a bit, this is going to be an agile, athletic, and responsive experience, even for a base trim. Sure, you don't have a sports tune suspension, so this is not going to be a crossover that you can really hug the corners on a winding back road. But since you don't have a CVT, you don't have a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, this is going to be fun. It's going to be tech-focused, also with the full digital gauge cluster and infotainment system. When you take a look at the features that you have here for an S trim, this is very, very competitive. You can say, well, I could find a more practical choice in this segment with the CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Hyundai Tucson. If you're someone who doesn't need a large compact crossover, and maybe you're considering a Mazda CX-5, maybe even a Ford Escape, that's where the Tiguan is going to be a great alternative. Sure, this new Tiguan does have some drawbacks, the fact that it is a bit smaller now, so it's not going to be as family friendly. But when you start taking a look at the price point, and then you start taking a look at the features, the heated front seats, dual zone climate control, the fact that this all comes standard, that is what's going to give the Tiguan a great opportunity to be successful in this market. You don't have to go with an SE or R-Line. An S is actually more than adequate even in 2025. What I personally like here, though, with the Tiguan is that you have a crossover that does feel rather competent, that it has a nice, well-balanced feel on the road. The suspension is tuned softly, but still has some rigidity here, especially with the MQB platform. Better yet, you're also going to have a crossover that doesn't feel lethargic or slow. So it's not numb, sedated, or boring. This is going to be an engaging, compact crossover for you and your family. With the smaller 17-inch wheels, the interior insulation is really good here. Yes, you can go with 18s. I would not recommend that. I don't like the wheel design at all. I think it makes the crossover look a little cheap and tacky. These 17s would be the ideal choice. Interior insulation is also rather impressive for a base trim because you would expect better interior insulation on the SE and then the R-Line trims. But for an S, this is pretty good. This is actually one of the more quieter compact crossovers I've experienced at around $32,000 since we have the all-wheel drive system. Even in sport mode, this Turbo 4 doesn't make a lot of noise. Also, with the 8-speed automatic, it's not clunky, it is rather smooth, and this is going to give you a refined driving experience overall. This, to me, is a great crossover for someone who doesn't want to deal with the CVTs, doesn't want to deal with the droning or unnecessary noise. What Volkswagen has done for this third generation is give you a lot more rigidity, a lot more refinement and quality, and you even feel that for the base trim as well. Typically, I would push you in the direction to go a little higher up in the trim levels, but I don't think that's really necessary here with the Tiguan for 2025. Also, with the leatherette wrapped steering wheel, it feels really nice in the hands. Firm 10-2 and 9-3 grips. Again, this is not going to be a crossover version of a Volkswagen GTI, so don't expect to have a sporty or aggressive experience. But who knows, with that R-Line turbo that we'll be getting, hopefully in a couple of months, that might be a completely different experience, especially since it is going to have a very similar power output to an Audi Q5. So that might be something to keep in mind here and consider if you do have deeper pockets in this market. Returning to the seat positioning and overall vision with the Tiguan for 2025, you have a nice panoramic view. A-pillars are really not that aggressive, but you might have some blind spots here and there when you are approaching intersections or red lights. The side mirrors are massive. They are huge. I can see what's my blind spots and the lane next to me. And then looking out back, nice clear view there, even with the headrest in the way. I also really do like the seat positioning of the Tiguan, where, again, you feel the size of this crossover now, where it doesn't feel as large, it doesn't feel boat-like and top-heavy. So you kind of feel a bit more connected with this Tiguan compared to last year at this time. But all in all, with the Volkswagen Tiguan S, and comparing this to the SE that I had featured a couple of weeks ago, this doesn't feel like a massive downgrade. And it doesn't feel like a rental crossover, which is really great, because some base models are really trimmed down, no heated front seats, no dual zone climate control, but Volkswagen did prioritize that. And I'm glad to see that Volkswagen did give us this for an affordable price point. That yes, you are spending over $30,000 if you go with the all-wheel drive system, and you could say, I could get a more well-equipped Volkswagen Taos. But keep in mind here that with the Tiguan, you have a better powertrain, better practicality, and also, I think, for the S, you have a more refined driving experience. And when you factor all that into the equation, this would be the go-to for 2025 if you don't want to spend over $35,000 in the Volkswagen lineup. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan S. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.